and succeeded in first securing and then defending appropriations of more than $1.9 billion for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. New federal money that has given us a healthy down payment with now more than 2,500 important projects completed around the basin. We've also worked hard on efforts to reduce the threat of invasive species, fought for critical funding for wastewater infrastructure to repair our aging water systems, worked on key conservation titles in the Farm Bill to reduce excess nutrients in our waterways, and advocated for strong and effective Clean Water Act. But none of this would be possible without our governance board. The governance board is made up of representatives of 14 non-governmental organizations, all doing wonderful work around the Great Lakes Basin. So I want to ask, can the members of the governance board who are here this morning please stand up for a moment and be recognized for all of your work and dedication? I also want to recognize the foundations that support the work of the Healing Our Waters Coalition throughout the year. And they're listed up here on the banners. The Joyce Foundation, the Mott Foundation, the Herb Foundation, the Wege Foundation, the Great Lakes Fishery Trust, and the Fry Foundation have all supported our efforts through the years and make it possible for us to help you with your work in the field, to support our implementation grants, help underwrite this annual conference, and make it possible for us to hire a top-notch staff. Speaking of staff, I do want to recognize the staff we have here at Howe. You already know most of them, and they make my job very easy. I want to especially recognize our Great Lakes Conference Coordinator-in-Chief, Martha Borey-Wood. I think she's probably out at registration. She's always running around doing something else when I acknowledge her, so please, others tell her I did acknowledge her. I expect that, but there are a number of House staff here in the room, so if other members of the House staff would just raise their hands if you're here in the room, and certainly we've got the old staff emblems here. Because feel free to grab any of us during the conference if you've got any questions or need assistance. We'll help you, because our job is to do our best to enable you to do your best at this event. Each year, this conference is made possible in part by very generous businesses, foundations, and organizations who sponsor the conference. Throughout the conference, we'll take time to recognize them for their generous support. You can also see the posters around this room that list those sponsors. This morning, I wanted to start that effort by giving special thanks to ArcelorMittal for their support for this gathering. You'll hear a bit more about the work that they are doing for the Great Lakes tomorrow. Now today, we will be having a special joint luncheon with the Great Lakes Commission back here in this room. I am happy to announce that our special keynote speaker for the lunch will be Chris Adamo. Chris is the Chief of Staff for the White House Council on Environmental Quality. Many of you likely know Chris for his many years of work on the Hill, his long history of work on Great Lakes issues, and now key position within the President's administration give him a special perspective on our work that he will share today. The lunch begins at noon and is a ticketed event. There are still some tickets available at the registration table now and before lunch. There will be chairs in the back of this ballroom for those of you who don't wish to pay for lunch but would like to listen to Chris's remarks. This evening, we'll have a reception from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Peggy Notebart Nature Museum. I think this is going to be a very fun event. It is a pre-registered event, and tickets are included in conference registration. So the only thing you need to bring with you is your name tag, because the name tag has the ticket for the event in it. If you know of others who are not attending the conference who would like to attend the reception, tickets are available at the registration desk for $50 for those folks. Chicago trolleys will be leaving the Drake Hotel on the Oak Street side starting at 5:45 p.m. and running continuously until 9:30. We're excited to offer beer donated from Lake Effect Brewing Company right here in Chicago, and we'll have live music from the band Mar Carib as well. Now, there's a few other things happening throughout the conference that I wanted to highlight for all of you. Anybody who knows me is going to will chuckle that I'm going to me, of all people, will be providing you some technological guidance. But I do know, if you're anything like me, that until you figure out how in the world the Wi-Fi works, the rest of what's going on you just can't focus on. So let's talk about really important stuff. So when you go into networks to sign up, it is free Wi-Fi, but when you go in to find your network, the network you're looking for is Drake Meeting. So don't do the NWF meeting or any of the other ones that pop up. It's Drake Meeting. And then both the username and password are the same. It's how915, and how is lowercase, all lowercase, HOW 915, again, for both the username and the password. And I just tried it a few minutes ago, works fine, so, but I know until all of that's taken care of and you can't get your email, the world might come to an end. When you're not checking your email or tweeting about all the great things that you're experiencing, check out the Great Lakes photography exhibit we have here. The exhibit is called Surface Tension, Fragility, and Beauty in Lake Michigan, and is in the Drake Room, just outside of this main room. It uses pairs of photographs to show the beauty of the lake on one side and the dangers that are often unseen but very much there on the other. Make sure to visit our exhibitor area. Again, exhibitors can be found in the French room, once again, just right outside this ballroom. That's also where break snacks will be. Breakout sessions will take place on the mezzanine level above registration. That's over to this side. Stairs can be found next to registration tables. Now, Wednesday morning, I want to make a special note. We're going to be trying something new called an issue table breakfast. We'll have a number of tables identified with table tent signs where groups can discuss Great Lakes restoration issues. So you look for a table with a subject matter that interests you, and you can just join the discussion at that issue table breakfast. You can also create your own restoration themed table and host your own. Just let our registration table staff know the topic in advance so that we can have a sign for your issue. We do have about a half dozen or so already identified. But again, if somebody has another one you wanted to add, we can do that. Also, for those of you that have, like myself, sometimes have a little trouble interacting with other humans at 7:30 in the morning, we will have some tables with no issues for those who wish to just have a quiet breakfast or chat with others. We are thrilled that once again, this year, Detroit Public Television is covering the proceedings of Great Lakes Week. This is the 5th year in a row they've covered our conference. They've been a regional leader, covering, reporting, exploring Great Lakes issues for viewers, not only in the Great Lakes states, but nationally as well. You can view their coverage of the conference on their website, greatlakesnow.org. Detroit Public Television has also just announced some exciting news. They will be forming a Great Lakes Bureau so that they can cover even more stories that we all care so much about, those that affect the lives of millions of people. So thank you, Detroit Public Television, for your support and coverage of Great Lakes issues. Now, anyone who knows Chicago knows that one of the highlights of the city is the Shed Aquarium. I'm very excited to announce that the Shed, in addition to the generous sponsorship of the conference, have also generously given all of you free admission to their world-class aquarium this week. Today through Friday, show your conference name badge at the front desk, and participants will receive a Shed Pass, which gets you access to most of the exhibits at the facility. Now, before I turn this session over to two of our co-chairs, Lynn McClure from National Park Conservation Association and Mike Shriberg of National Wildlife Federation, we wanted to take just a couple of minutes to remind all of us of some of the work that has happened around the Great Lakes in the last few years. To do that, we want to show a short video put together by the Joyce Foundation as part of their Great Lakes Great Impact series.
We've seen through this project that it's no longer economy versus ecology or economy versus the environment. You cannot have a healthy economy without a healthy environment.
river was Buffalo's original economic engine, but the city turned its back on it because the waterfront was just a dirty, filthy mess.
We realized that the cost of the cleanup was going to far outweigh resources that we were able to bring in, and then the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative started to happen. Now we see literal traffic jams in the river of kayaks and crew and fishing, so we see a tremendous amount of activity.
There's about 250 construction jobs here, and initially we're going to be hiring 200 people. Over the next few years, we expect that number to double.
Riverworks for us is a wonderful example of what we envision the Buffalo River Corridor being. Not only creating a nice recreation opportunity and bringing life back down to the waterfront, but doing it in a way that is environmentally sensitive.
Things that have wings have a tendency to be the first things that come in or leave an area. So they're a good indicator of the environmental quality. We had at least 3 eagles earlier today, 1 adult and 2 young ones. When I started bird watching in the 1980s, there was 4 nests in the state of Ohio. Now we're up to over 200 nests. The Great Lakes Restoration Initiative made a huge difference. More diversity in plants, more diversity in birds, insects, everything.
The tribe, we take great pride in creating the first tribal national park. It was a piece of land that was part of the original Red Cliff land base. Collaboration with the Bayfield Regional Conservancy applied for a grant from the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. We're able to capture this pristine property.
I think that it was a perfect storm of all of these things coming together. The right people, the right funding source, and the right timing to be able to make it happen.
Very shortly after we opened the business here, there was a lot of publicity declaring White Lake an area of concern. We have seen the shoreline change over the years through the shoreline restoration. There are businesses that now exist in town that would not exist had the area of concern not been cleared up. Not something that you can stop doing. It's something that you have to continue to do, to continue to take care of the lakes.
It's part of our history, part of our culture, to be stewards of the land.
We can truly say that if it wasn't for the GLRI, we would not have a restored river that we have today.
Well, great. Well, that was an inspiring video. I'm Mike Shriberg from National Wildlife Federation. And I want to start, first of all, by doing something I'm not sure if we'll have time to do otherwise in the conference, and that is to thank Todd, right? Because Todd thanked many other people up here, but there's one person that's really driving this and making this go. So, Todd, stand up just for a minute. I'm going to embarrass you. Let's give him at least a big round of applause. You know, I've had this amazing opportunity to actually see this initiative in snapshots. Right? So about 12 years ago, I started working with someone you all might know, Andy Bucksbaum. All right, so Andy, who, by the way, this is the first time he hasn't been at one of these conferences. He sends his regards. As many people know, he's now national for the National Wildlife Federation, and he's actually in DC at this moment. But he told me he was working on a bipartisan coalition to get billions of dollars of funding to restore the Great Lakes. This was maybe 13, 14 years ago. My reaction was something like, and I know we are on DPTV, and this is a family program, so I'll edit it. It was something like, you're going to do what? How is that going to work? How is this possibly going to get together? And then I was able to meet some amazing people. I met Tom Kiernan at the National Parks Conservation Association, and Peter Wegge and so many others, and spent many hours in the early strategy discussions. I was on the original governing board for Healing Our Waters as this took shape, and the momentum and passion was amazing. This is just one blast from the past, right? This is from the very first conference here. And this initiative started to take off. Now, as many of you know, I spent the last 5 years at the University of Michigan, what I call my academic sabbatical, and I can call it that safely because I know Don Scavia, my boss there, isn't here yet, so that's a good time to be able to call it that. And I've been able to see the successes have been absolutely outstanding, and I would say unique among conservation initiatives in the country, right? And you're probably sick of seeing this particular chart, but in many ways, it's unbelievable what's happened. Almost $2 billion in Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, and that's not including the water infrastructure. Projects long forgotten or never dreamed of have been implemented. Over 2,500 projects completed. The return on investment has been at least 2 to 1. I'd say that's a very conservative estimate of it. And the results on the ground are tangible and impactful along every possible measure. Even the GAO has commended this program, and EPA is managing of it. But when I think about the successes, I actually think it may be the indirect results that are even more impressive. First of all, this is perhaps the best example of successful work in the region, and arguably one of the best examples of bipartisanship in Congress. It is the only conservation item in the Obama budget that got a boost from Congress. It's endured through extremely tough budget times. Second, this has risen all boats in the region. This is not an issue-based campaign or theme. This is a natural resource-based movement that has direct results, but also a leveraging function on almost everything else, whether it's algal blooms or Asian carp, oil pipelines or habitat protection, fish or chambers of commerce. When the Great Lakes restoration works, it drives and catalyzes all kinds of actions, both the unintended consequences and the intended ones. So I am very humbled to come back into this initiative many years later and to be rejoining the governing board as a co-chair. My key role here over the next few days is to listen and learn from the 300 plus people here. The wealth of knowledge in this room is absolutely tremendous, and you all have driven the success in your organizations right from the start. But as we've learned through our strategic analysis and our strategic planning, this is absolutely no time to rest on our laurels. There's a ton of work to be done, and we are entering new uncharted waters for at least 4 reasons. We looked at, and Lynn's going to talk more about this in a minute, we looked at what are some of the risks out there, what are some of the opportunities, and 4 big things popped up. One, first, in part, as a victim of our own success, some of the lowest of the low-hanging fruits have been picked, and I think we need to recognize that up front. We're getting into more difficult and potentially treacherous terrain, but also terrain that can have huge impacts. Second, the lakes themselves have changed. Invasives, nutrient pollution, algal bloom, climate disruption, right? All these things, it's not that these things didn't exist 10, 11 years ago, right? But they've accelerated, we've learned more about them, and literally the lakes today aren't what they were at that time. We started these efforts with a scientific call to action that talked about tipping points and the lakes being pushed to the brink. Where are those tipping points today? What do the new lakes mean for our collective efforts? Those are some of the challenges, some of the questions that we absolutely have to answer both individually and collectively. Third, the politics have changed. All right, and one obvious outcome is the partisan rancor has increased markedly. I would argue the highest in at least modern times, right? And also, we know that we will have a new administration coming in not so long from now. Now, this initiative is in good shape because the second Bush administration created it, drafted it. The Obama administration funded it. But a new administration means new challenges, and it means getting out in front of those right up front, regardless of who it is. Fourth, finally, and most importantly, the biggest thing that's changed is what we have right here, an enormous, powerful, sophisticated coalition which didn't exist as an entity before. We have a plan that we're driven by, we have staff who are driving this home, and we have all the people in the room here for this conference and at this gathering and beyond. That's in part why the governing board initiated a strategic planning process. And I really want to give thanks to Lynn McClure, who's going to be talking in just a moment, for her amazing leadership on this, for helping to orient me right off the back coming into this work. And she's going to tell you a bit about what were some of the outcomes, what is the strategic direction going forward, given the challenges and opportunities that we collectively found on. So let me turn it over to Lynn. Thank you.
So you have 4 brief speakers this morning, and I realized sitting here, I'm the only one based in Chicago. So sorry, Todd, I'm going to do the welcome. Welcome to the extremely windy city today. Happy to have you here. Feel free to look out the windows because it's super awesome looking that way and not nearly as nice looking this way. So welcome. It's my job to take us forward. Last time we got together at a conference, it was 10 years, which is rather phenomenal and makes you think how you lasted so long. Well, we're all very relevant. We've done some very good work. We're successful. That's why we've lasted so long. So what do we do going forward? Do we sit back and say 10 more years of the same thing? Do we change our style? Do we change our goals, missions? Okay, we've done that, let's do something else. Well, you know, it bore a lot of thought. And in order to get to the point where we are today, where we're embarking kind of on that next 10 years, we went on a listening mission. We wanted to hear from our members, our friends, our governing board, our supporters, what was needed to defend the lakes over the next 10 years. We asked people also what they thought the coalition's role should be in that defense, and we learned a lot. Through the conversations of talking to nearly 100 of our closest allies and supporters, we better understand just how important the coalition is in the future of the Great Lakes, because that very first question we asked was, is it time to fold up the tent? Is it time to let somebody else take the lead? And there was an emphatic no from everybody. It wasn't surprising to hear just how valued our policy knowledge, our representation in DC, our communications, and our messaging is. That was really at the root of what was most valued of our members and our supporters. What was surprising, though, was to hear to what depth that was critical. We have to have that. We rely on that to go on. After listening and analyzing the conversations, a group of the Howe Governance Board and staff got together a couple of times to develop strategy over the next, for the next few years. Rather than trying to lop off 10, we took a look at the next few. We didn't overhaul our goals, but we did refine them, changing some strategies where the situations change in politics, adding elements where we believe we'll need to mount defense at various points, and increasing Howe's ability to help our members speak in a unified voice more frequently throughout the region, because a coalition isn't 5 staff, it isn't 2 co-chairs, 3, 4 co-chairs and a governance board. It's the reach and the depth that we have through our membership and supporters throughout the region. Our top priority will remain advocating to sustain the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. We're working now and will increase our voices to authorize this well-supported program so that we aren't at the mercy of Congress every year to decide whether or not Great Lakes are a priority. We want the law to say that Great Lakes are a priority. Thanks to investment from the Joyce Foundation, we'll mount on a region-wide polling early in 2016 so that our work to reach presidential hopefuls is well-grounded in the support of the people in the region. We'll focus on building new partners, new members in important places to help advance the restoration message and the importance of GLRI to them, to their quality of life, to business, and to communities. More of what you saw speaking in the video. Those are important stories to tell. We may need to mount defense of the EPA as administrators of this program if they come under fire over the next few years, and judging from some of the happenings in Washington over the last 2 years, that's entirely possible. Our second priority, we will ensure the accountability of the Great Lakes Restoration Funds. Our Success Story campaign has been highly effective. We'll increase communication and outreach around this part of our campaign. Again, we will increase reliance on our members to carry the messages that this is a highly accountable program. We'll continue to invest in our members to compete for GLRI funds and in each state to help build support around not just GLRI, but other Great Lakes issues and programs. We also see the need for strong scientific research to reinforce restoration focus areas and assess progress on GLRC goals after a decade. In addition, the economic value of this program is undeniable, and we need to get back and update our Hallmark economic report to bolster restoration support among decision makers. Our third and final priority will be to convene and facilitate discussion on Great Lakes issues and policies. That sounds like what we already do, but we want to look at it in a slightly new way, not just lobby day in DC in the winter, not just the conference in the fall, but how can we do it in a larger way throughout the year? Looking at how and when we bring people together, our role in convening initial discussions on issues, as we have in the past for ballast water and Asian carp, maybe because of our reach and the commitment our members and allies have to our coalition, we can leverage that into stronger discussions to move other Great Lakes issues throughout the region. It's an exciting time. We have committed members and funders who know that how is critical, and because of this support, we have built some real Great Lakes champions in Congress and throughout the basin, and we've quantified the success around restoring the Great Lakes. We do need to stay strong and effective together. We need to grow as a coalition and to meet the new challenges that most certainly lie ahead in this crazy presidential year, although entertaining presidential year as well. And with that, I want to take a moment to introduce one of our campaign team, a really valued member, Kristy Meyer from the Ohio Environmental Council. Kristy's been a co-chair for 2 years along with us, and she has been a real leader in the Great Lakes Coalition. She's a committed governance board member, has been for a number of years, beyond her 2 years as co-chair, and she will remain in that function, we very much hope, because we really need her leadership. Kristy will be rotating off after 2 years as being a co-chair, which is a real hole for us, but to her credit, she's got her Monday afternoons back. No co-chair call anymore. Kristy, thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Lynn. Good morning. It is such a pleasure to see so many familiar faces. I can't wait to get to know the new ones, too. Lynn and Mike did a great job of highlighting all the work that we've done to incorporate your thoughts and so many members of the Great Lakes region's thoughts into the vision for the future of Healing Our Waters Great Lakes Coalition. As a co-chair of the past 2 years, I've really had an enjoyable honor to hear and see the successful restoration projects and to participate in putting together the vision for the future of the coalition. I want to take a couple of minutes to highlight how we've incorporated this vision into this conference, giving context for our workshops, our plenaries, and our field trips that we're going to enjoy over the next couple of days. So you heard Lynn and Mike summarize those core areas that we're going to be focusing on. Again, federal policy advocacy, making sure the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funds are spent effectively and efficiently, and being a convener, a facilitator of critical conservation issues. It really should come to no surprise that anyone that knows the coalition that we're going to continue to do our federal policy work. We're going to be working with our members and our partners to ensure that we have a continued significant dedicated federal funding, a federally authorized Great Lakes program, and sound environmental policies from Congress and from federal agencies for Great Lakes restoration. Sessions at this conference will include how to use social media. Maybe Todd should join them. I know I should as well, Todd. How to effectively talk to decision makers, to how to utilize the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement to achieve fishable, swimmable, and drinkable waters. And we'll see some of the results of the foundation we have laid to raise public awareness and to influence key decision makers when our own policy director, Chad Lord, goes to testify before Congress tomorrow on the effectiveness of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative with other leaders throughout the region. When you're successful in bringing nearly $2 billion to the region to fund more than 2,500 restoration projects, that's amazing, by the way, it is really important to have an ongoing sense of how effectively and efficiently those dollars are being spent to achieve our goals. Numerous sessions are going to be focusing on this at this conference, including removing barriers in rivers and how to utilize green infrastructure to achieve urban restoration goals. And we'll take a look at innovative approaches to spend restoration dollars effectively to tackle some of those really challenging problems that we're facing in Maumee Bay, Green Bay, and Saginaw Bay. We also expect there will be important conversations amongst many of us over the next couple of days about the efficacy and efficiency of Great Lakes restoration investments by federal agencies. Those informal discussions, those relationships that we build and sustain, and those campaigns that we develop and foster at gatherings like this is so critical to the coalition. Serving as a convener and facilitator on Great Lakes conservation issues is something that Howe has consistently done over the years and that we look to be more intentional about in the years to come. The coalition has become recognized as an effective convener of discussions and facilitator of ad hoc networks working on Great Lakes conservation and restoration issues. And we've heard about some of those things that are going to be happening this morning, but so some of those examples of where we will see that convener function taking place is the lunch today, where we're co-hosting with our friends, the Great Lakes Commission, which they're wrapping up their conference today in this hotel. At the issue breakfast tomorrow that Todd talked about, where you'll get to choose the conservation issue of your choice, or you can sit at your table and talk about social skills. Also, tomorrow after the issue breakfast, don't miss out on a really great session where you'll get to talk with the International Joint Commission and other environmental or industry organizations about what does it mean to have effective public engagement and what does that look like in the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement as we try to achieve those restoration goals. And then do not miss our closing plenary because we really need you to be there so you can ask really smart questions too. But this is where we'll tackle one of the most important issues in the Great Lakes, the ongoing need for meaningful, open, transparent mechanisms for stakeholders of all types to provide input into both the process and the implementation of restoration across the Great Lakes. These are just a few examples of the ways that we are working throughout this conference to bring you important subject matter, informative and enjoyable field trips, and perhaps have a little bit of fun over our reception tonight. The thoughtful focus that the Howe Coalition brings to this work and the engagement of so many, especially my colleagues on the governance board, are why I've been so pleased to serve as one of the Howe Coalition co-chairs for the last 2 years. But my term does come to an end today with this conference, and a new co-chair has been selected and has stepped up to take my place. And I'm really pleased to announce the board has chosen Mike Striegel from Gathering Waters to be the new co-chair. So will you join me, and Mike, will you please stand so we can recognize you? I look forward to continuing on the Howe Governance Board, and I really look forward to catching up with many of you and getting to know many more. Thank you.